shalom, my friends, and shalom, my enemies, too. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And what a pleasure it is for me, what a treat it is to be welcoming to the neighborhood, a Zeta, I believe she must be a Zeta, someone who is 98 years old. Her name is Beatrice Franklin, or B, we will call her, and she is here in the neighborhood to talk just a bit about her life. She is the daughter of Mo, aka Jack Strauss, who is one of the founders of the Pep Boys, if you know that automotive folks who fix cars and things like that. And she was married to an Army photographer who took a trove of photographs that she preserves and archives and keeps. So won't you please welcome her caregiver is there as well. Oh, and she is a Columbia grad and former educator. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you please welcome to the neighborhood, B. Franklin. Shalom, B. Let me hear ya.
Shalom, David.
Well, you could call me Sol. Sol.
Okay.
Dave is my friend.
Okay, Sol. Rabbi Sol.
That's me. That's a shalom to you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Pains, aches, how's your prostate? Mine is killing me. But is your prostate all right?
My prostate is fine.
This is good. As long as your prostate's working, nothing else really matters that much. And by the way, a big thank you to your caregiver there who's helping you out and making sure that you got safely and well onto the program. It is a delight to have you. So how long, when I know you were a librarian and a teacher, how long ago were you doing that? Was it fairly recent or a few years ago?
Oh, it was a while. It was in the 70s.
Oh, and now you are 98. Is this correct?
That's correct.
When's your birthday?
June 30th.
So you are literally
98 and a half.
You are currently 98 and a half years old. My God. So can I ask you, I'm curious now, what is the very first thing that you remember from your childhood? Be it your family thing or just in the world at large. What's the first memory that you have that would have been back from like 1920 something?
Yes, 1928, I believe. My dad took me to the second floor of the Pep Boys office, and we were able to look down on Broad Street and see the mummers coming up the street for the holiday. I'm not sure now. I think it was for Thanksgiving.
The mummers parade. Yeah.
And that's what I remember. I thought it was so exciting.
Now, since you mentioned the Pep Boys, it was Manny, Mo, and Jack, and this confuses the hell out of me because your father was Mo, but he's also Jack. I don't get it. Well, how does this work?
My uncle was my father's brother, Mo.
All right.
And my father was Jack.
Jack Strauss, yeah?
Yes.
Wasn't there another Jack in Manny, Mo, and Jack? There was a Jack something or?
When Mo and Manny opened the Pep Boys, Jack, I don't even know his last name, was the third partner. But for some reason, he left shortly afterwards. And Mo asked my father, who was a lawyer, if he would like to come into the business. So he was a lawyer and he had been a bookkeeper. So he was a plus to the business. And they had to keep the name Jack because it was so established. So my father became Jack, and that was Manny, Mo, and Jack.
Now it makes, okay, I was trying to figure out because there was a different Jack and there was, so your dad just became Jack. So at the point when your father came into the business, was it just like one garage and then it expanded, or what happened?
No, I don't know how many stores they opened originally. I do know that they had a gas pump in front of the store on Broad Street, and then the name of the gas was Pep. That's how they became the Pep Boys.
The very famous Pep Boys, which still exists, by the way.
Yeah.
Looking for, you have one family member left who's connected. Everything else has been kind of sold off to, what is it, Organization? Not Organization.
Yeah, I believe that's my cousin. My
Yeah.
cousin Benjamin, I think.
Now,
I haven't.
I also want to thank, by the way, your son, who, what a great, is his name actually, he's Ken, but is your son's name Kenjamin?
No, and I hate that name. His name is Kenneth.
So, but he goes for comedy reasons, I guess, as a PR person, he calls himself Kenjamin, because it's
Yes.
Kenjamin Franklin, which but you don't like it, you're, no. Hey, what is your Hebrew name?
My Hebrew name is Bela.
Bella, this makes sense. Do you remember, you will not have had a bat mitzvah, but how Jewish was your family growing up?
I had a bat mitzvah.
You did! At
Yes.
age, what, 13?
When I was 91, which is 7 times 13, I believe. I
Yeah.
said I wanted a bat mitzvah, and that's what I had.
Why did you want to, God bless you for this, but and he does. Why did you suddenly choose at 91, I want to do this?
Well, because I'm very attached to my temple, and I'm very attached to my religion. And I started studying Hebrew when I was 7. And the most important thing that I remember vividly was that we belonged to the temple was called Har Zion Temple, I believe. And my mother took me to the temple on, I'm having a senior moment. When they take the tourists out and they walk around, and I can't think of the holiday that it's called. But anyway, and I thought that was
Simchas Torah. So Simchas Torah, yeah.
Simchas Torah. And we were up on the balcony, and I was looking down, and I saw all the men walking around holding the tourists. I thought that was such a wonderful, beautiful thing. And that hooked me really on wanting to learn Hebrew. I didn't do too good a job of learning Hebrew, but I know how to read it and so on.
Well,
and I've always been a member of temple.
You can
all
always
my life.
pass. If you just go, people think you're speaking either Hebrew or Yiddish, you can get by. You can literally walk down Borough Park. But oh yeah, they know. No, but you did not choose to go Orthodox or anything like that.
No.
You don't want to go there. How would you describe? Are you just conservative or reform?
Reform. We joined, I was a member of the conservative temple before we moved here. But when we moved here, a friend of mine who lived a couple of doors away said to me, I belong to a great temple. It's not conservative, it's reform, but I think you'll really like the rabbi. So he said, go with me one night. And so one Friday night I went and I was hooked. I became very active in that temple.
I could not be happy. Now, how active, you're 98, how active do you get to be these days? I know you have a caregiver and you have your son isn't, but do you go out and shop? Do you, especially post-pandemic, how much do you physically do that isn't in your home?
Well, my oldest son takes me out for dinners to, let me see, Frankie and Johnny's in Manhattan and Peter Luger in Brooklyn.
Whoa!
And we both love to travel. So as a matter of fact, Sunday, that's not tomorrow, a week from tomorrow, we'll be leaving on a cruise with my son Rick and my grandson and his wife and their 3 children, my 3 great grandchildren. So
where are you going? Where's the cruise going?
Let's go into the Bahamas, Nassau, Jamaica, and so on.
Nassau.
Yeah.
I was living on, I could take the Long Island Railroad to Nassau. Nobody to go to Suffolk. Now that's something. That's something to do. Now, also speaking of Nassau, also is there a way you can pick the phone, move the phone a little bit, because I'm seeing your nose up to your head and not all of your face. There we go. That's a little better. Thank you very much. You also grew up for many, many years, or lived for many years in Forest Hills. Do you have any memories of the way Forest Hills used to be?
Well, to tell the truth, Forest Hills used to be very, I wouldn't say anti-Semitic, but it was difficult when we first moved. The people who were members of the community didn't want my parents to buy the house because we were Jewish. And my father said, if you don't want me, I don't want you, and I'm not buying the house. And the house sat empty for a couple of years. And then they decided they would put up with us. And they were very nice. They were very nice to us, to my family,
Oh,
because
but
the house.
once they made the decision that we didn't have horns and we weren't evil, at that point, when you finally bought the house, all right, welcome to the neighborhood. Oh, you're not so bad. We'll be nice to you. Well, that's all right. Have you,
Right.
did you ever personally experience, since you've lived so long, personally experienced real anti-Semitism of being beaten or bullied or yelled at or swastika painted somewhere? You personally?
I personally,
Yeah.
the funniest thing that ever happened was when Christmas time came at that first year, and I had a playmate who lived across the street, and we were the only Jews on the street. So we were playing together, and she said something about Christmas. And she was so excited because last year, the year before we moved in, she saw Santa Claus in her house. And I said, what do you mean you saw Santa Claus in your house? She said, yeah, Santa Claus came and visited us the day before Christmas. Because I saw him in the house. So me not knowing about Santa Claus, I said, that can't be Santa Claus, because there isn't any Santa Claus. It must have been your father dressed like Santa Claus. So she was very upset. She went home and told her mother, Santa Claus isn't real. And the mother said, what do you mean? And she told her what I said. So the mother called my mother and said, please have me tell her she was only kidding. So I said, I was only kidding, and we were fine after that.
That's wonderful. Why don't you tell her about the tooth fairy? I'm kind of curious about this. We are talking with B. Franklin, ladies and gentlemen. Now you, and I can't, not to keep going back to the fact that you're 98, but what are your memories of living through World War II in America? Because you did. I mean, you were very young during the Great Depression, but you lived through World War II. Any memories about it?
Well, the first time I remember hearing about the war is I was attending college in Wisconsin, and we heard someone yelling, a newsboy walking down the street holding newspapers and yelling, war, war. And we all ran out and picked up the newspapers. That was my first realization that we were in war. My brother was in the Army, ROTC, and he was part of an air corps. And I called him to ask him what's happening, what are you going to be doing? And he said, don't worry, everything will be fine. And then some of our friends from college were being
Drafted.
to join the Army.
Yeah.
And some of them did, and we lost a couple of them during the war. And we had on the campus soldiers who some of them were being taught Russian or French or Italian, and the others were being taught meteorology, so that they could go over to Europe and do what they had to do. So I remember that.
Yeah.
One of the fellows I knew was studying Russian, and he was very impressed that he taught me I don't remember it now, but he taught me how to say, I have blue eyes in Russian. And that was when I wanted to speak Russian, that's what I would say. No one knew what I was saying.
But is there one phrase you can get away with? I don't know. Blau Augen is German. I don't know how to do it in Russian. Let me ask you, also having lived during those years, it's always just this curious thing to me of when did you and your family realize that the Holocaust was happening? Like, it wasn't just there was some anti-Semitism in Germany or that Hitler was saying bad things about Jews. At what was it, 1940 41? Was it 44? When did you really sense that, holy shit, they're killing us?
1941. My best friend, when we moved to New York in 1933, they had come from Germany in 1933, and we became best friends. Her father, who was a doctor, had been arrested in Germany because he was speaking against Hitler, and you didn't do that. But fortunately, his wife was an American citizen, and she went to the consulate and explained the situation, that her husband had been arrested, and they managed to get him out of jail, and they packed up and moved to Forest Hills. And we were told what was going on in 1940 and 41. And an image that I will never forget is how my friend told me that when they came out one day, there were Jews on their knees scrubbing the streets with buckets of water and brushes, but they had put a little bit of acid in the water. So it hurts me to even say it, but that's how we found out what they were starting to do to Jews in Germany. And we met my friend's father, brought over, because you had to have a sponsor to be able to get out of Germany and come to the United States or wherever you wanted to go. And he sponsored 200 people whom he knew, to bring them over to Germany, to the United States.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of them because they were very close with one another. So that's how I learned about what was going on in Germany.
And of course,
people didn't believe it. People said, no, people don't do that to people. But they did do that to people.
Isn't it wonderful that now we're of an age where we believe everything? It's like, oh, they're doing that in Ukraine? Of course they are. Oh, they're doing this in Uganda? What, the guy's eating people? Of course, anything's possible now. Any atrocity, anything that one human being can do terribly to another. I believe it's 10 times worse than what you're telling me. That's what marvelous times we live in. But let me ask you, still sticking with the war and the Holocaust thing, but your husband was in the army, but he was a photographer. So how did this all happen? And what incredible imagery was he available to get, photographs of? It's badly phrased, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Well, how he became a photographer for the army was, as a civilian, he was working with a photographic company doing, I don't know what, developing or whatever it was. He never really went into details. But when he was enlisted and they asked him, what have you been doing? And he told them about this photographic company. They decided to make him a photographer. And he was a very good photographer. But so he went, he had training, I think somewhere, I think maybe Texas, I'm not sure where it was. And then he was sent overseas to North Africa. And the first pictures that he took was of a French boat, small boat, that the Germans had bombed and was tied up in a port. And then the one that I think you're referring to is the one that when he went with the troops into Dachau, when they liberated Dachau. And we have pictures of that.
So he was physically there taking pictures of the liberation of Dachau.
Yes.
Was he, people who were there at the liberation of the camps never quite got over seeing that or seeing what the people looked like. Was he changed by that? Because he was in the army and he saw killing, he saw this and that, but going into the camps.
Yes. He never looked at, because he came back from the army and he had all these pictures that he kept copies of. And he asked me to put them in the albums, which I did. He never opened one of those albums. He never wanted to look at it again because some of the pictures are really terrible.
And here's the question, where are those pictures now? All of them in his whole canon, his whole oeuvre. You have them?
And 2 albums in my home. Yes.
2, that's it, 2 albums. Didn't he take hundreds of pictures?
I don't know how many he took, but the ones that he didn't know for sure that he didn't keep all of the pictures that he took, but we have, oh, I don't know how many pictures of what he saw, what he took pictures of. I just know that I took them lovingly into albums, but he never looked at them.
Can I ask, of all the pictures that he took, and I'm not talking just the dock house, what would be your favorite? Like, do you have a favorite picture that was like, oh, this is his classic, or I love this?
Well, it's going to be an interesting answer, because he not only took pictures of the war, he took pictures of homes that he stayed in, to develop and to sleep before they moved on to another town. And one of those pictures is of a beautiful home in Italy. I think it's in Italy. It's a beautiful home. Now that's what sticks in my mind.
Now, here's another question. There's a famous photograph that your husband did not take, but it's a very famous photograph that comes about a week after the end of World War II. And it's in the middle of Manhattan, and some sailor, I think, is the girl got his tongue in her mouth, has got his fingers somewhere else. Now, your husband did not take that picture, but you saw it for real?
Yes, I did. I was in a class at NYU when they announced over a loudspeaker that war in Europe had been ended. And we all got very excited, and everyone in the class decided we were going to go to Times Square, because that's where people used to hang out. So we ran there and we stand out in the street, and all of a sudden this picks up a nurse and holds her and kisses her. And we didn't think anything of it, because a lot of people were taking pictures and everybody was kissing everybody else. And lo and behold, that was the picture that was put in the newspapers. I wasn't in it, and the friends of mine who were with me, we were not in it, but we were face to face with this wonderful.
And you didn't even, it wasn't like the man planting the flag on the moon. You could just say, oh, somebody's kissing somebody, and you get this iconic, incredible photograph. Can I ask you, what were the 60s like for you? Because by then, not when you were in your 60s, but the turbulent Vietnam, old versus young, race stuff. Were you already settled and kind of like watching it from afar, or were the 60s kind of turbulent because you worked in schools and stuff?
I wasn't. I was taking care of children. My three boys were, Rick was born in 46, Bruce was born in 48, and Ken was born in 52. So they were just growing up in the 60s. And that's what I remember of them, taking care of kids.
Well, wait, but were they already listening to weird, to music? Were they trying to wear funny hairstyle? Did you care about that, or you already lived through so much that it's like, it's just another cycle of American life?
Well, what I remember is Ken, because he was very involved with music at the time. And he was always blaring the music. And I'd say, you're going to lose your hearing, it's so loud. I mean, I have such a vivid memory of that. Lower the volume, it's going to ruin your hearing. And he said, don't worry. But he was always involved with music.
This is and she is, of course, talking about Ken, her son, Kenneth, although we call him here Kenjamin, who helped get BEA Franklin on the program. So you got a cruise coming up in, when is that happening? This summer, this spring, when?
No, we're going to be in Fort Lauderdale. I think it's, I don't know what town in Florida it is, to board the ship, but it'll be sailing on the 19th of this month.
Oh, Mazel. Can I ask you, and again, this is going to be a very ageist sounding question, but do you walk? Are you ambulatory? Do you wheel? How do you get? No, you're 98. You're 98. So yeah.
No, in the house, I use a walker because my balance is very bad. And I have my caregiver who holds on to me when I'm walking without the walker in the house. When we go out to anywhere, I don't take a walker. Brittany holds my arm and we walk. Because I was a walker. I used to walk a lot when I was able to, but can't now without someone. But that's how I get around.
Wow. We have just a couple of more. I just have a couple more minutes with B. Franklin here before B stays to play the trivia quiz, the today, yesterday trivia game. It's a ridiculous game. Don't expect to get anything right. Trust me. But so many other things. Like, do you have any like your you used to go to Broadway theater all the time, and Dave,
I
the
still
host of
go.
the show, loves this, and I love the theater. Favorite Broadway memories?
Well, let me see. The first show I ever saw, I was 12 years old, and my brother was in military academy in Pennsylvania. And my parents, there was a show on Broadway called Brother Rat, which was about a young man in a military academy. I don't know the theme of the story actually, but I remember going to that show and very impressed about being in a theater and seeing live people performing. And I think that's what hooked me on to Broadway shows.
And you still go. You recently went
I
to
still
see If
go.
Some Like It Hot, which just
That's
opened a couple of months ago.
right. We're going to see it again. We love it.
Oh, you love it. Excellent. Okay, and so I'm just throwing things at random at you now, but your family was friends with Rocky Graziano, the boxer?
Oh, yes. Rocky was at our house a lot of time. Came to one of my son's bar mitzvahs.
Oh my God! How did you? I guess Manny Moen, because how would you have known him? Your family have known him.
I don't know how Jerry, my husband, met him. Uh, and we knew, I don't know if you're into ice hockey, but the Rangers, some of them, Brad Park, Boom Boom Jeffrey on, a lot of them, some of them, Boom Boom was here for Sunday brunch one time.
I know a Boom Boom Moskowitz, but it's a very different. Hey, let me ask you though. Also, one of the things that your son recommended that we talk about is that your brother had a meal with a former president of the United States. Is this a thing?
Oh, oh, that's when he was a kid.
Oh,
My, not my brother, Rick, my oldest son.
your older son. Sorry, yeah.
Was in a private school, and Donald Trump was one of the students he became friendly with. And one Saturday, Rick invited him to come to the house to play. I don't know what they were doing, but anyway, I made lunch for them, a sandwich. I don't know if it was tuna fish or eggs or whatever. And I put it on the table in front of him, and he lifted up the top piece of bread and said to me, "Mrs. Franklin, I like my tomato thinly sliced." So I said, "Okay, Dave, Donald, I'll remember for the next time you're here." Well, he was never over at the house again. But that's one of my favorite stories about Donald.
That sounds so freaking dark. If you put ketchup on it, he would have eaten it. That's all you need. Forget the whole tomato. Just put a freaking a dollop of ketchup. Oh my God! Wow. So many fun stories here with B. Franklin, ladies and gentlemen. Now, while we wait for our guest to come play the today, yesterday trivia quiz, one thing I forgot to also ask about is, Dave and his lovely wife Joyce lived on Long Island for many, many years. Dave grew up on Long Island. You lived in Lawrence, Long Island.
I live in Lawrence. Yeah, we moved here in 58.
Was Lawrence basically rural at that? Because now we think of Lawrence as like a little suburban community. It's like 45 minutes from Manhattan. What was Lawrence like?
No, Lawrence was about not quite as what it is now, but it wasn't very rural at all. In fact, I remember farms in Forest Hills
Wow.
when we lived there. There were still farms there.
Run by anti-Semitic farmers, which is kind of an interesting thing. All right, I have to. All right, I've got my other rabbi calling me. I've got to go and do a sermon at my shul. We have been talking with B. Franklin here on Dave's Gone By. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Time. B, do not go away. Stay exactly where you are because I'm going to bring Dave into the neighborhood to do the trivia quiz with Don Pearl and also we hope Leslie Hoban Blake. So B, I'm going to play a little class. I won't play it too loud like the song Tangerman. I won't blast your ears with this. But it's happy, nice, klezmery music for B. Franklin. Don't go away.